Okay, hi. So I don't want to make this introduction very long because I just want to get into the video, but I get a lot of questions about what I use and where I get it, so this is going to be a little breakdown video of where I get my stuff and what exactly I use. Okay, side note, there are going to be a lot of clips in this video that are out of focus, so like don't pay too much attention to that. Okay, thank you, bye. So this breakdown is basically going to be for two things. General SFX, like the stuff I do on my Instagram page. And then basically gore SFX makeup, which is just like the blood, the scar wax, and that stuff. So let's get started. Alright, so this is what I use for the SFX when it comes to gore. So the most basic thing you need for SFX makeup is scar wax. Scar wax comes in a lot of forms. You can either make it yourself or you can buy it online. Here's the difference between these scar waxes. This scar wax is more oily and it's more soft, which makes working with it a little bit harder because if you're trying to color it or if you're trying to manipulate it in the way you want, it sometimes gets like smushed. It's hard to color it if you're not using eyeshadow or like powders. So if you're trying to use foundation or watercolors or alcohol activated paints, in order to tap on top of it with a brush or with a sponge, it's very like soft and it kind of smushes. So that's basically the one major downside to homemade scar wax. But other than that, I would recommend using this and making it at home and using it for practice because it's a great thing to start with. I will be making a video that's all about homemade scar wax, how to make it, how to use it, the consistency, etc, etc. Now for the scar wax you can buy. This is my personal favorite. It's Ben Nye Nose and Scar Wax. I live in Qatar, which is in the Middle East, so no place sells this here. So I had to get this online. But if you live in Europe or America, I'm pretty sure you can find this somewhere. The website I use is Camera Ready Cosmetics. It's going to be linked down below. Please, if you're gonna buy this or anything that I'm gonna mention in this video, do not buy it on Amazon or eBay. These websites tend to overcharge because the sellers aren't the distributors of the product directly from Ben Nye, so it tends to be more expensive, but Camera Ready Cosmetics is a direct distributor of Ben Nye. Anyway, here's why this is my favorite. Ben Nye Nose and Scar Wax is much harder than the homemade scar wax, and it's much easier to use and work with. Once you blend it down, it's less powdery and it's a more seamless blend into the skin. So you can even see just by squishing it that it's much harder than the homemade scar wax. As you can see here, by me blending it blends seamlessly into the skin and it doesn't show any edges, and it gives for a much more realistic finish. Now the final competitor is the Mehron Scar Wax. The Mehron Scar Wax, in my opinion, takes more getting used to because it's harder to work with. And it's not hard to work with, it's just harder than Ben Nye Scar Wax to work with. So this is, I feel like it's more elastic and it's like more flesh-like. And I actually do prefer this over the Ben Nye Scar Wax in certain looks. This also has that seamless finish where you can't actually see the edges. But with this, as opposed to the Ben Nye Scar Wax, it kind of stretches or like drags when you kind of try to manipulate it. So if I were to blend it onto my skin and try to like make a cut into it, it would drag the wax with it and not like stay in its position. So that's one thing. It's called Cinwax. I don't know if I was referring to it as Scar Wax or not. But this is much harder. Like it's much harder to the touch. So like, you hear that? It's very hard. So you don't use it directly like this. You have to take a piece out and kind of knead it with your fingers to make it more like malleable, so it doesn't actually come out of the box like this. Now these are both great, amazing options, but I would recommend starting off with the homemade scar wax using the Vaseline and flour recipe and using that to practice. I practiced for months and months before I actually got this. I started in March 2018 and I bought this year. So I spent over a year and a half using homemade scar wax, so I would recommend using it for practice. This retails for $29 without shipping, and this one retails for $16.95 without shipping. That's how I build looks when it comes to gore SFX primarily. I also use this obviously sometimes for my normal look on Instagram, but when it comes to those looks, I usually use liquid latex. So this latex I got on Amazon because the latex that is sold by Mehron and Ben Nye is actually pretty expensive. The Ben Nye liquid latex is $44 for 32 ounces, and I bought 64 ounces for $16. And this is pretty cheap and it works very well, so I just prefer this over the others. I'll put the Amazon link in the description as well. Liquid latex is used for an abundance of things. I primarily use latex for two things: sticking things on and making prosthetics. So if I have a prosthetic, whether it's gelatin or latex paste, I put a layer of latex under it so I can stick it on. Latex is a much better prosthetic adhesive than glue because once you stick a prosthetic on, it doesn't move at all unless you try to rip it off. Once I have my prosthetics on, I usually take a Q-tip or a sponge and put latex on the sides of it to make sure the edges are smooth and seamless. Now, the other main purpose of this is to make latex paste. I can make a whole other video on that, but basically it's where you mix latex with flour very carefully so you don't ruin it, and you use that paste to make prosthetics, wait for it to dry, and use it, well, as a prosthetic. I also use latex a little bit when it comes to like the gore makeup and the TikToks I make. For example, I use it for a third-degree burn makeup look. 2 bottles of this, which is linked in the description below, retails for $16. And if you live in Qatar and you can't buy something online, you can actually buy a product that's called Art Masking Fluid. You can can find this in any art store, but I found it in Cas Art Qatar, as well as an art store that's in city center, but I can't remember the name exactly. It's not too expensive, and it's definitely less expensive than this with the shipping and taxes and everything, so I would recommend buying that. However, I do buy these in bulk because I use a lot of it in a short amount of time, so going there and buying a little amount with the price that it is kind of accumulates to much more expensive or much more sum. It just accumulates much more money than it is just to buy these in bulk. Another great adhesive when it comes to gluing down prosthetics or gluing down scar wax is spirit gum. I also got this at Camera Ready Cosmetics, and it's really good. But if you're gonna buy this, I really recommend that you buy the remover with it. I personally don't have the remover, and I have to scrub my skin, whether it's my face or my hand, when it comes to removing it. So I would really recommend you buy the remover if you're gonna buy it. Now let's talk about coloring. So when it comes to coloring gore or SFX makeup, I use primarily two things. The number one thing I use is watercolors. I don't use these as much anymore because I use alcohol activated paints now, but these are an excellent way to color prosthetics or wounds. It's pretty dusty, but I primarily use this color and this color, this for bruising and this for redness or irritation around wounds. But the black and brown here are really good, and one of my favorites actually is this color right here. It's really good for veins and for texture or rotten skin, and this was one of the main colors that I used for my mummy look, so that was pretty fun. Once again, if you do live in Qatar, which is where I live, you can find these at Lulu Hypermarket. These are the watercolors by Faber Castell. I got these at Lulu Hypermarket, and I'm sure if you don't live here, you can find it in any supermarket. So secondly, this is what I use most of the time, if not all of the time. It's alcohol activated paints. Now, these are made for SFX. So the first palette I have is the complexion palette, which is basically skin tones and undertones you can use for skin colors. The second one is a VFX palette that's used for blood and bruise tones. These are both by the illustrator. I will link them down below, but these are very expensive. I also bought these a few months ago because I saved up and I got them, but they're $80 each. And in order to buy them, and I had to struggle to get this, but you need 91% alcohol. So I actually scoured the internet for a way to get 91% alcohol into Qatar, but there is no way to get it into the country, not on Amazon, not on eBay, not on any online retailer. So I actually had one of my friends bring it over from America. This is the alcohol that I use. It's 91 isopropyl alcohol, and I have 4 bottles of this because I got it in bulk. It's from Walgreens, but I'm pretty sure you can buy this at Walmart or Target if you live in America. I've tried a few pharmacies and places in Qatar, but no one sells it here. And 70% alcohol and any percentage of alcohol, rubbing alcohol, or acetone will not work. So you need 91 or 99% alcohol. Now here's why I love these so much. First of all, they're waterproof, so if anything comes on your makeup, it doesn't ruin them. It dries down super quick, and the colors themselves are formulated for SFX makeup. So for example, the color Aged Blood. This color is one of my favorites in this particular palette. It makes it look like the wound is not very fresh and it's been on your skin for a while, and it actually gives off a pretty realistic aged blood effect. So I primarily use these two colors, which is for the irritation outside of the wound and for the blood inside of the wound. And I mostly use this for prosthetics in case I have any light or dark edges, so I use these to kind of match them to my own skin tone. So this bottom row is primarily used to match skin tones, and I don't really need any of these colors to match my own skin tones when it comes to making prosthetics or wounds on my own hands. So I would use these when it comes to making a mask or a fake finger or something like that. Besides those two main coloring methods, there are 2 more methods that I do use. Number 1 is this color wheel by Miron. It has these 5 colors, and my favorite thing about this is how is how seamlessly it blends into the skin. I do believe this is oil based, so it doesn't dry if you leave it out, and the tones are pretty nice. And the black tone here actually blends out to be a purple, so that's pretty useful for bruising. Now the last method I really use is eyeshadow. I personally mostly use these 2 palettes. This is the Swear by a palette by NYX Cosmetics, and this is a custom down to earth palette. You can basically go and pick any colors you want and put them into a palette. Okay, there it is. So these are the colors that I chose myself. I'm not exactly sure why I chose the blue, but the yellow is for bruising and the black is for setting makeup. So I use this a lot. I have a few other eyeshadow palettes, but these are the ones that I use the most. So when it comes to actual SFX looks for my page, I mostly use cream-based paints. Now, my holy grail favorite go-to cream-based paint is the NYX Cosmetic SFX cream color. So I have this in these 5 colors, because these are the ones I use the most, and these are also linked in the description below. Another really good option besides the cream paints is the watercolors by Snazaroo. They're not sheer at all, they're actually pretty thick, and if you want you can actually use them without any water. They're water activated, but alone they're kind of a cream paint by themselves. I also found these at Cas Art Qatar. It's 20 riyals a piece, but if I do find a link for them, I will link them down below. Okay, any item in this video that I can find a link for is gonna be in the description, so if you're wondering if any of these have a link where you can buy them online, they're all gonna be down below. Now this is a CC Beauty palette, which is kind of a dupe of the Flash palette by, I'm not sure of the brand, but the Flash palette is $99. This was $20.
stupid.
I got this off of Amazon, link will be in the description. And it's actually a very good palette. The payoff is pretty good, and it's also oil-based, so it doesn't dry if you leave it out. I don't know if that's an important detail or if that's like in most makeup, but yeah. Now when it comes to painting black, I do use this and this, but one of my favorite things to use is the gel liner by NYX Cosmetics. I use NYX Cosmetics a lot. So I've had this for over a year now, and it's amazing. It doesn't run out. Like, I've gotten through like maybe like what, 60% of it, and the payoff is incredible. But when it comes to painting my eyelids with this, when I blink a lot, it kind of creates like a crease, so you do need to set these pretty quick. Okay, now for my foundation. Okay, so I use two types of foundation, MAC Pan Sticks and this Can't Stop Won't Stop foundation by NYX Cosmetics. I use this for my pale bases, and whenever I want to do something that's on a light base, I use this. And these are for when I need a thicker base or when I need to cover my brows. And that's basically it for foundation. Okay, now I'm gonna get into blood, but quickly before I do that, I'm gonna talk about gelatin real quick. So in the SFX world, there's something called third degree, which is this. Third degree is a type of silicone that people use for wounds or scars or even prosthetics if you have a mold. So third degree is really good. It's parts A and B. You mix it together, and once you mix it together, it starts to set. So you don't have a lot of working time, but it is a really good material to work with. It is pretty expensive though. I will put a link below for places to buy this if you do want to buy it, but I would recommend making the gelatin recipe I'm about to tell you. So this is the homemade gelatin that I made, and I make this once every few months. I make it like in big batches so I can use it for a while. And it's pretty simple. It's 2 parts water, 2 parts gelatin, and 1 part glycerin. Excuse the mess on the label, but this is the glycerin that I use. But obviously you can use whatever kind of glycerin you find. The homemade gelatin basically has the same effect or the same function as third degree, but with the tiny like few differences. Number 1, depending on how liquidy your gelatin is, it could either dry quicker or faster. Quicker or faster.
She's really good.
Quicker or slower than third degree. So if you were to put too much water on your gelatin, for example, it would take longer to dry, and even when it dries, it's not going to be completely dry, it's going to be a little slimy. And if you, for example, heat up your gelatin for too long, then it could set quicker than scar wax. What? Then third degree. So basically, once you have all the ingredients mixed, the gelatin, the glycerin, and the water, you just mix it together until it gets a little lighter, and then you put it in a microwave for not too long. The thing is, you have to put it in the microwave depending on the amount of gelatin that you made. So I would recommend checking in on it every 10 seconds to make sure it's not burning, because if you put it in for too long, it will burn. And it's happened to me actually a few times. Another difference that the gelatin has is that you can't bulk it up as much as you can with the third degree. So this gelatin is used more for like kind of like flat wounds. So it basically lays down flat on your skin, whereas you can kind of build up the third degree. But it's a much cheaper alternative, and I would 100% recommend it. Fun fact, this is also what I use for prosthetics. Okay, excuse the disgusting mold, but let's say I have this mold, which I made out of plaster. I would Vaseline the inside and then use gelatin over top of it and then flatten it out for the edges, and I would use that as my prosthetic. And besides my latex-based prosthetics, this is basically what I do. So now let's get into blood. So when it comes to blood, I only basically use 2 consistencies. My holy grail is the Ben Nye scab blood. This scab blood is like a coagulated thick blood, and it's absolutely incredible. I use it for every single one of like my like SFX looks on my hands, for like my TikToks, and all of my like SFX looks as well, but I don't use blood in all of them. But when I do, it's definitely scab blood. The second consistency is the liquid blood. I don't have any right now because the liquid blood that I did have, I put it into this container so it dries out and it forms scab blood. I'm trying it out. I don't know if it's gonna work, but it's getting pretty thick, so I think it's gonna work. But I don't have any right now. Now let's talk about my contacts. So I only actually have 3 pairs of contacts. First is this Sclera lenses, the black full eye coverage lenses. They're really big, hard to get in, and they're actually pretty uncomfortable, and you really have to get used to them, but they look amazing in looks. So I got these at lens.addict from Instagram. They do have a website, that's where I ordered. I will link them down below, but Sclera lenses are pretty expensive. And the 2 other pairs of lenses that I have are the white ones that don't cover the pupil? Yeah, I think it's the pupil. And I have the white ones. So both of which I got at a local Instagram page called SFX_guitar. They're not very expensive. I got them at 100 riyals a pair. The white one that doesn't cover the pupil is, I can't even feel it when I wear it, so it's pretty nice. But the white one is not uncomfortable, but you can't see anything. You can just like see white. So it's kind of tricky to film or to record or to take photos when it comes to tapping them in because you can't really see. So you often need the help of an assistant. Okay, that's basically it. I really hope you guys enjoyed this because this was very highly requested on TikTok and on Instagram. So I really hope you gained some information from this video. So if you like it, give a like, give a comment, share it, send it to someone who might be interested in SFX, and I will see you guys next time. Bye.